You need more light?
No, I think that's good.
Are you sure?
Yeah, let's just see here. Lauren, are you there?
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm using my phone. So 6:59, we've got another minute. And hi, Jennifer.
Hello, how are you?
Excellent. How are you?
Good, thank you.
So I'm en route to Pennsylvania. Actually, I just arrived in Pennsylvania, almost to my
Wow. Long drive.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you let me know when we have a quorum. Can you tell?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3. We have 4, so we have a quorum.
All right. And Trevor, is he here?
Trevor is here.
All right. Well, it's 7 o'clock, so let's start this meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. And we will ask if there's any public hearings. Lauren, if you can help me with this, if you see any hands up. On my screen, all I can see is Jennifer.
Michael DiChiara.
Okay, Michael?
Hey, Dan, how are you? So thank you for having me. I haven't been to a school committee meeting in a very long time. So I just wanted to briefly comment on the Amherst region in 6th grade. I had a little exchange with Steve on email, but I just wanted to get ahead of it. It sounds like you all have not discussed 6th grade nor plan to, which is a good thing, I think. But having lived through the regionalization discussions, I just wanted to share that I'm not a fan. And one of the reasons I opposed the last talks of regionalization was exactly for that reason, that if we regionalized, we would have been forced to have our 6th grade go down to the middle school. And, you know, although I haven't been engaged in the school in the last few years, between being a parent and then being on school committee, and I'm assuming it's still the same way, we have a really robust, wonderful 6th grade program that, you know, the thing that I always took away from, you know, the kids' experience is that they came into themselves in the 6th grade. And I always used to, talk to Bob about if you can get the kindergarten parents to see what happens in sixth grade, they'll realize the pathway and why it's so important. And so I'm glad that we're not going down that route immediately. We might get pressured to down the road. I think the thing that most struck me, and I'll just keep it brief, was in the paper reading that Mike Morris basically, felt like he had to make the decision because the school building program wouldn't pay the town of Amherst for a building that did not include, that was only one K-5, that if you're going to build an elementary school, it couldn't have sixth grade. And funding for a building is not a curricular best practice. So, I continue to applaud SES's sixth grade. And just, if you get there, or before you get there, just know that I think we should maintain our sixth grade, even if it creates a little bit of awkwardness, and historically the kids always have some trepidation going down the hill, coming from the small little Shutesbury to big old Arms. So it's going to be there anyway, but the foundation and the sense of self that the kids get in the sixth grade program, I think it's invaluable. So thank you for the time. And if and when you have that conversation, let me know and I'll come back.
All right, thank you, Michael. And as you know, with public hearings, we don't comment, but certainly if there's any conversations or discussions, we'll put it on the agenda. And if I remember, I'll try to invite you personally. Thank you. All right, any other public hearing comments? No, all right. We're gonna move along to review the agenda and perpetual calendar. Just budget discussions and all of that coming up. Jackie, just be aware if there's anything the school needs or having conversations with staff, that'd be great. I think that's something in October and I think that's about it. There's a few other things, but I think everything is a little off kilter with COVID. Warrants and gifts. Steve?
I have six warrants tonight. Number 306, these are payroll warrants dated 9/20, 80,882.64. Number 307 dated the 4th of October, $82,723 even. And number 308 is dated the 18th of October, is $82,537.67. And the payable warrant, number 3007, dated 9/20 for $33,612.51. Number 3008, dated the 5th of October for $26,401.75. And number 309, dated the 19th of October, is $49,550.15. So that's our warrants for tonight, Dan.
Thank you. Did you send all of that to Trevor?
Yep, Trevor has that.
Excellent. So that'll show as a record of the warrants. And I'm assuming no gifts. Is that right, Jackie? We're going to assume no gifts.
No
Anything change?
gifts. No gifts.
Perfect. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from September 16th?
I move to approve the minutes for September 16th.
And a second.
I second.
Okay. Any changes, amendments to the minutes? No, Trevor, as usual, does a great job. We will do a roll call vote. We can do it all at once, however you'd like. All in favor accepting the minutes from September 16th? Hayes, aye.
Sullivan, I.
Rose, I.
Martella, I.
Thomas Pickman, aye.
Great, thank you all. Unfinished business or updates? Jennifer, did you have anything there that you wanted to put in or add? Or Jackie, for that matter?
I have stuff from my principal's report, so.
We'll do it in the report. Perfect. All right. We kind of leave that there as a placeholder in case something
Steve.
does come up.
Steve has his hand up.
Oh, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the right place to do it, but I wanted to go back and talk about our mask vote from last month.
Well, I think if we're going to have a discussion about the masks, it's something we should put on the agenda so that people
All
can
right. I will request that for the next one then.
Okay, I will make a note to put that on the agenda. And Jennifer, if you can also make a note so that we don't forget. I'm looking for my pen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I already made a note for you, Dan.
Awesome. You're the best.
I did too. We're all set.
Thank you. I appreciate your patience and helpfulness, all of you. All right, so new business discussion items, school choice funds. Jackie, I know that you had sent us some ideas on using school choice funds. I didn't know if you wanted to elaborate a little bit more.
I don't really have much more to elaborate on. Those are our ideas.
Okay.
And besides some basic one-time purchase requests, which I'm going to talk about today in my principal's report as an example of one. But I am pretty solid on what I sent you in terms of our ideas, which takes up a lot of the money.
Yeah. I'll put it out to the school committee. Are there any questions or comments on the ideas and usage of the school choice funds for FY22?
Steve has his hand up.
Steve?
I just want to say, Jackie, thank you for that, because I forwarded that to the town administrator, who forwarded it to both the, I believe, the select board, but yes, to the FinCom. And because, they've been having discussions on what they should do with our money. So I wanted them to see what you were thinking. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad it's helpful. And I also appreciate, I think we've said this before, I'll just say it again. We appreciate people asking us about it, and also appreciate the time it took us to kind of think about it, because it wasn't on our radar really, and we didn't really know what to expect. And so I think the time has been super helpful. And I also think that there's some really exciting things that, as you saw, I wrote that could happen that would be really awesome for our school community.
Dan,
Yeah.
also Susie has her hand up.
Okay, Susie, go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate the information, and I think this helps direct people's attention. I wonder if you would be able, if the school committee would be able to extrapolate a policy out of this. I can see that it's clearly temporary staff positions that respond to a specific need, and you've worked at having sort of a more than 1 year view of what those are. Those are two good things. And I think because this is a new thing to work on, it would be good to begin to generate a sort of a general policy. And then FinCom met last night, and there was a talk about the rural aid number that's on our school account revenue. And so the question about how the school decides on allocating funds began to, question was added, well, how do they plan on rural aid? And of course, rural aid, I think, has been also a figure that changes from year to year.
Yes,
So
we got less this year.
Yeah, so and because it's a legislative controlled thing, we don't know what will happen next year. So, but I wonder if there's some kind of view that the forest policy that would also be able to incorporate how that money might be spent.
So address both of those. First of all, I think as far as the school choice funds, I also appreciate the time and effort that was put into this proposal for FY22 and for FY23. As far as a specific policy, I think at this point, Susie, it is something that we are beginning a process of really looking at this. We're still sort of dealing with COVID and lots of, I think, unusual, extraordinary expenses that are going to be for a limited period of time. So as we move forward, these discussions will continue, and we will look at, maybe this in a broader sense of, whether there's caps or anything like that. But I'm glad that this was forwarded to everybody. I planned on forwarding it after we discussed it this evening, but information is good to get it out there early. So I appreciate, Steve, you forwarding that to everybody. So hopefully that addresses that. And the second part, rural aid, perhaps Jennifer can talk a little bit more about how that money is used. But I also had a question. It appears that there's a discrepancy with what the finance committee has for funds as compared to what we are reporting.
Yeah,
Maybe
so the rural aid figure I got, and I got it directly from the department, was the 22,000 and change. And then Bruce gave me that same amount. I don't have the exact number in front of me. I could look through my email
That's fine.
as soon as I'm done speaking. And, the thought about rural aid when we began our advocacy 3 or 4 years ago was that Chapter 70 funding and other funding sources weren't helping our rural schools. And so, we were looking to help our operating budget through rural aid. And so I think Bruce sent out an email today that said we were using our rural aid to help support our budget. To me, the rural aid piece is a little different than school choice. The only issue is it does fluctuate from year to year. For example, this year, all of our Union 28 districts actually got rural aid. So they've sort of expanded the parameters of the rural aid, which is good for districts who didn't get it, but there's only so much money in the pot. So it does lessen the rural aid that we get. But for me, to be able to use it to help support our budget is something we've been advocating for. And please know that every year I have to submit, sort of what we're thinking about for rural aid. And then over the summer, how did we actually use it? So there is an accountability piece that goes to the department for that. And
Okay.
Bruce, I don't know if you want to add a little more.
Bruce had his hand up as well.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah, if you'll recall from our budget discussion, I actually budgeted $30,000 of rural aid for the FY22 budget to help offset our increase to the town. A couple of things going on here because of, and I really would say because of COVID. We have not tapped into what we have received in the last couple of years. So we have, I'd say, approximately $60,000 sitting in an account at the town right now. It's our intention, or my intention, to use it to offset teacher salaries in the FY22 budget. And, as Jackie has displayed with the school choice, and may use some of that to help offset some of the new teacher we had to hire and maybe save some of our school choice money that way. But, yeah, and Jen mentioned this year, and it's we don't know about it until we get it. We got $22,846.63. So, it's helpful to us, but right now we've been able to kind of set it aside and not use it because we've haven't spent the money in our general fund budget. So, but we are planning to use them this year, and we probably will budget for it in the next couple of years. So,
well, and I think it's important to say too, if this was non-COVID times, that money would be very great. That wouldn't be sitting there in non-COVID times, but because we got the ESSER and all those other grants, we had this influx of money that we were able to use in a different way that won't always be there. So, so we were able to really strategize and think and be thoughtful with the money and not just willy-nilly spend the thousands of dollars we got from ESSER. But so I think I want to just say that too, is that the reason why there is $60,000 sitting there is because we got a lot of other things because of COVID, and we used that money first to be able to support the school. And so in non-COVID times, whenever that will be, we're not going to have the same thousands upon thousands of dollars of support from ESSER. And so I just want to be, wary about, I don't want to have a constant staple of using rural aid in a budget when the budget that we've been operating on for the last 2 years doesn't feel the same. And that they could pull rural aid in a second, just like they did early childhood money. So I just wanted to just add my 2 cents there.
Well, Jackie, I think that's a really important point, because in building a budget, we need to be careful of the funds that we're using so that we don't end up in a bad position where, as you said, those funds aren't there. And it looks like already if we budgeted 30,000 and we got a little less than 8,000 as a deficit. So I think, Susie, to answer your question, that it is sort of in the budget factored in. And so that should answer the question you had as far as how we use the rural aid money. I'd also want to point out that with the budget, as you know, when we have funds left over, that money is returned back to the town. So when there is extra money, as Jackie just pointed out, we don't go buy extra things that we're wasting or not utilizing efficiently or effectively. That money ends up going back to the town. I don't remember how much we gave back last year, but it was a pretty significant amount.
And Dan, I just want to be, so it's in the record, rural aid can be used for a wide variety of purposes to support district operations. So it's not going to supplant the general budget, right? And priority is given for efforts that increase regional collaboration, consolidation, or any other strategy to improve long-term operational efficiency. And that was our advocacy, right? We need more efficiency and effectiveness. And so we do have some parameters about how it's spent.
Right, and reporting on how you spent it. And I do think that those efforts are good because it helps us become more efficient over a period of time. So thank you.
And to your point, Dan, we did return about $20,000 to the town this year. So
great, thank you for looking that up. So perhaps just for a formality, we should have a motion to accept the ideas and usage of school choice funds for FY22 and FY23. Do we have a motion?
I move to accept the requests for spending this school choice money.
Okay, second.
I second.
All right, roll call vote. Hayes, aye.
Sullivan, aye.
Rose, aye.
Martell, aye.
Thomas Paquin, aye.
Great, thank you. So COVID cases notification system process outlined. There were some questions that had come up at our last meeting, Jackie, after you had left. So I thought it would be good to just hear a little bit about the process that's used. It seems to me that just from what I have read and researched, what we do is pretty extensive and more than what many other schools do. So if you can briefly give us a description of that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Okay, so the process usually starts with, I guess it could start in 2 different ways. So I'm going to start with, we get a call about a school community member having a positive diagnosis. So if the person's not in school at the current time, they do not come to school. The nurse speaks with them. She tells them, she asks them for well, first of all, okay, wait, there's a couple of things. The first thing is if someone calls symptomatic, okay? If someone calls symptomatic and they have multiple symptoms, what Nurse Katie talks to them and instructs them to go and get a PCR test. They remain out of school until the PCR test is come back in. If it comes in as a positive COVID case, Nurse Katie then alerts the Board of Health, that then calls the family and tells them all of the specifics. Then it kind of is in the Board of Health's hands at that point. However, on the school end, we set up a meeting immediately within 12 hours, usually faster, with the Board of Health. And we discuss the case, and Nurse Katie then immediately contacts the classroom teacher, and contact tracing happens with the student. Because the students are so little, the teacher is involved, because the teacher keeps the seating charts and the line things and has all the knowledge. So they then do contact tracing, and we actually work with more than what the state guidelines say. So the state guidelines say that within 3 feet for over 15 minutes, masked or unmasked, contact. And we actually use up to 6 feet. And when we do our contact tracing, so we do more there. As soon as the contact, and then we also then contact the classroom teacher and any specialist teacher that the student has had within the time frame, which I think is like 3 days before symptoms, or 2 days during symptoms. So the specialists also tell us, like in art, where did so-and-so sit during art, and everybody has a seating chart. And Katie then contacts the families and says that they are a close contact. We then send a letter to the school community saying that there is a positive case in the school. And what we did the last time is we didn't have any student close contacts at that time. So I did mention in that letter that there were no close contacts, but if there were close contacts, it would say, if you were a close contact, you would have been notified by now. Otherwise, you're not considered a close contact. Now, because we have the testing in school, this is where it becomes a little different. So we didn't have testing when our COVID cases happened at school in the beginning of the year. We didn't have testing yet. So all of the children that were considered close contacts had to remain out of school and get a COVID test for 5 days. So on the 5th day after exposure, you're supposed to be getting the COVID test. So they missed a lot of school. They missed 6 days of school, which is a lot. And but now what happens is if the children are signed up, and I'll tell you about the data of who signed up in our school. We have a good amount of people signed up. If you're signed up for testing and you're non-symptomatic, that's the key. You're non-symptomatic, the students can come to school and have an immediate test in the morning. And it's our test and stay piece. So they have an immediate test in the morning. And if it's a negative test, they're allowed to go to class, of course, partaking in all of the mitigation measures that we have. Obviously, if it's a positive test, then they would be immediately sent home and go through the entire process with the Board of Health during that time. Am I missing something? Oh, and the other thing is as soon as we hear about a positive case, it usually happens at night or in the afternoon. That's just what we've had. We've only had 2, but then we have the room cleaned immediately that's another thing that doesn't necessarily have to happen, but we do it. The room is completely sanitized immediately from the custodian, even if he has to go in on the weekend, and we make sure it's all clean for all the students.
And I think it's important to note, Jackie, across Union 28, we use the DESI letters that one goes to the close contact families and the other go to just notify the community. And unfortunately, we have to be very careful of what we say. We receive guidelines. They're not our guidelines. They're the guidelines from the department. We get those directly from DESI. And so I know I can empathize with people who feel like they want to know more or should know more or are worried. We all get that and understand that, but we are following the guidelines that we are given. when notifying the community.
And also, I also just want to speak as the principal of in my 8th year of a very small school. Everybody knows everyone, and keeping confidentiality is extremely difficult. And this virus has a stigma. It has a big stigma, whether it should be there or not. And outing a family or a student or a staff member publicly in a letter does not feel appropriate to me. And it first of all, we don't have, Betsy says not to, but just on a personal level, that in a professional level, that does not feel appropriate to me. And you know, we are very serious about our contact tracing. We would never not tell somebody if their child had been within the parameters that we have told people. And I understand there's fear there, but there's another moral and professional obligation that we have to keep as a school, to keep all of our school community under strict confidentiality and care. So.
Yeah, I think that's all really important. As well, you have the Board of Health. That is another layer of contacting. I know that they're phenomenal in how they are working with community members who are in isolation and in quarantine. So I'm really happy that you took the time to really give us a good explanation of, you know, not only the system, but also the effectiveness of the testing, because I think what we're all really striving for is the least disruption in our school so that kids can learn.
Yes, I'm thrilled about the test and stay. I am thrilled about that because if you do read the data with very high mitigation standards that we have, the possibility of our close contacts actually getting the virus is extremely low. It's if they're continually masked in school with some distance, it is very, very low. So I'm really happy about the test and stay so that we don't have students missing weeks of school. And we can't offer them the online option that we had last year. So
Right.
They're really missing days of school.
Thank you. School committee members, any questions? Lauren, any hands up? All right.
No, sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you for your help too. All right. Next item is homeschool applications. I need
Yep.
a motion.
We just have one this evening, so sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to point.
Thank you, Jennifer. So we need a motion and a second to approve the one homeschool application.
I move that we approve the homeschool application.
And a second.
I second.
All right. Hayes, aye.
Sullivan, I.
Rose, I.
Martell, I.
Thomas Pickman, aye.
Okay. Next, reports. Superintendent report.
I'm going to start off with the high point. On Tuesday, I was the substitute principal / fake Miss Mendonza. Miss Mendonza reminded me to be there at 8 o'clock. My husband set the alarm for 6 and had coffee ready, so I would be on time. I was there. I got to do drop-off duty, lunch duty, which was adventurous. I get to hang out in the halls, go to preschool and do the beanbag dance, make friends with lots of kids. It was the best day I've had all year. So I told Jackie, I think she needs to be frequently absent or I get to hang out there a lot more. It was a wonderful day. It was fantastic. What a wonderful staff and school. I know you all know that, but made my day. We had professional development in Union 28. What a nice return to almost normal that we actually could do union-wide professional development. We began our first step in the journey of unlearning oppression and anti-racism. A local provider, Swan Kai's, whose children go to Leverett Elementary and who lives, I believe, in Montague, provided the PD along with some other facilitators. It's a day long, was a day long. We have another one in May, and she'll be meeting with us sort of midway through. So it was really nice to interact, even if it was virtual, with Union 28 staff members. So I'm looking forward to learning and growing more. We finished all of our ESSER applications. I'm going to take this moment to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to Pamela Rogers, who we would be lost without. She did all the nitty gritty work and got that ESSER documentation in. And, you know, Pam she went through everything with a fine tooth comb. She's great. So thank you, Pam. And just to share with people, because we did have those 2 committee meetings and 1 listening session, and we did take feedback from our community, I just want to share that how we're using it. We took feedback from people, and we will be working on providing mental health services and supports through continuing with our guidance counselors at our Union 28 schools. We also will be looking to support our students academically with interventionists, and we will continue to monitor our health and safety through continued work with Jamrog and our HVAC system. So all of the things we got feedback on informed our application and inform our work. So thank you for all the people who joined our meetings and shared your feedback. We really appreciate it. We talked a little bit about rural aid. And lastly, I just want to talk to you at the local committee level at the Joint Supervisory meeting in November. We will be talking about substitute pay. As we start to look at a more return to more normalcy, we will be, of course, needing substitutes, and they're very difficult to find. And the last time we voted in a sub increase was 2017. And I did some research around substitute pay rates in sort of our general regional area. Right now, we pay a teacher $80, a teacher aide $80. If you're certified or retired, it's $90. However, when we look at Gil Montague, they pay a teacher substitute $120. Mahar, Orange, and Peterson pay $95. Frontier pays $93. Greenfield pays $95 to $100. Northampton pays $100. So I am bringing it to the Joint Supervisory for the reason that we're starting to think more cohesively across the district, and I would never want to compete one of the Union 28 schools against the other. So just please know at each individual school committee meeting, this will be spoken about, and I'm going to share the document at the Joint Supervisory. But I think it's probably time we start looking at increasing our substitute rates. And I will take any questions or comments. Otherwise, that's my report for this evening.
That all makes sense, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Any questions for Jennifer?
I can't believe that was 2017 when we bumped up those. It was that long ago. Wow. We need to do it again.
Don't say that long ago. I was here then. You're making me feel old.
Even I was thinking the same thing. That seemed like just
I
like,
was
yeah.
thinking that too. Can I just add that having enough substitutes was an issue before COVID, and it's just worse now. But even post COVID, it'll continue to be a challenge. So, I just wanted to add that part.
All right, Director of Finance and Operations, Bruce.
So I really don't have a whole lot tonight, but I sat in with Jackie on the interview for a new custodian. Should probably speak more about that. Starting to work on FY23 budget. I hope to have first draft for you at our October, November meeting. so we can get that process started. And the other thing I filed, will be filing, finally got some information tonight that I needed. Our end of year report, and I just need the school committee to allow Dan to sign off that I have submitted it, so. That's what the affirmation is, so.
Do you want to vote on that or just,
I believe just needs a vote so you can sign off on it.
all right. So do we have a motion to accept the FY21 end of year report?
I move to accept the what did I start to say?
21.
FY21 end of year report.
A second?
No. I second.
Thank you. And roll call vote. Hayes, aye.
Sullivan, I.
Rose, I.
Martel, I.
Thomas Paquin, aye.
And
Great.
just so you know, as soon as I complete it, I'll have Pam email it to you guys so you can look it over.
Thank
It's a
you.
pretty comprehensive showing of the uses of our funds. So
Bruce, do we have any word on the school roof fund being approved?
I have not heard anything from the MSBA, believe it or not, and I don't think Becky has either. So maybe it would be worth a poke. I gotta call them up anyway
Yeah.
because I got something else going on. So I'll find out what's going on with the accelerated repair program. So
Perfect. Thank you. All right, principal's report.
Okay. I sent you my report, so you have the Google Doc. But in terms of personnel, Andy, our awesome assistant custodian, is retiring on October 29th, and it makes me very sad because he is so awesome and the kids just love him. But he's retiring and I'm very happy for him, and he has a whole plan, and it's going to be great and he deserves it. And we hired a person named Kevin Grant in that position who has some experience being an assistant custodian. And he seems excited about the work, and he's going to begin on Monday and overlap for about a week for some training. And then we have hired Jeanette Teta as a 0.6 English as a second language teacher for our students. And she'll also work in Irving and Leverett to make her a full-time union employee, which will be really nice. So we're very excited about her start. So like I had said earlier, we currently have 80 students and 36 staff members signed up for testing at school. It's certainly the highest in the union. Nurse Katie and I made a silly video with our stuffed moose mascot, Coco, for the families and the children, demonstrating the tests. We were a big hit with the children. We got asked for some autographs, which was really funny. Actually, the other schools in the union shared the video with their communities so that they could maybe get more people to
Jackie's famous now.
Yeah, to sign up because they can see that it's really not invasive and it's very quick, and that the little kids have help doing it and the big kids do it themselves. So it was an adventure, and Nurse Katie was a trooper and she was great. And she called her PPE her germ costume, which was really funny. But so we have started the symptomatic and test and stay program already. We've already been doing that for the past 2 weeks. And next week we will begin the pooled testing as well, because we finally have the staff to be able to assist Katie in testing over 100 people every week. And it's probably going to happen on Tuesdays. And let's see. Okay, we continue to eat outside on all days that are not super rainy. And as we continue to transition into the colder months, we will be eating inside when it's very cold and when it's snowy. So I was thinking about, setting a temperature of like what's an appropriate temperature to have to be eating inside or not. I'm wondering if I need to do that or if I'll just be able to make the call. The kids are super flexible on where we sit. It's very much picnic style. If our grassy hill is wet, we sit on the sidewalks. If we have a whole thing, and they're all the way from second grade up particularly are like super strong at it. So it's we're going to try to do it as much as possible. But once it gets really cold, I'm not making people eat outside in the cold or in the snow. And we have had to eat inside, and we have a very solid plan. As you know, only 2 classes at a time, over 6 feet apart, facing the same way. Mask was on immediately. But one thing is when we do eat inside in the cold months, I'm assuming like in January, if we're eating inside every day almost, we are going to try to implement an eat and go. So what that means is sitting down, eating your lunch as quickly as possible. You mask up as soon as you're done eating, and you'll have a chance to go outside, not onto the recess side, but a different side, to play outside for the last bit of time. So for example, Bethany's son is in second grade. The second grade takes 10 to 15 minutes to eat, and then they have a lot of energy. So they really enjoy the extra playtime that we are able to have outside now. They finish eating, they just pop up and go to a section and play. And we're going to try to continue that so that we're not just sitting inside the cafeteria while some kids are on mask and some kids are not. So and we have lovely grounds to be able to do that. So
and I do want to mention, Jackie and school committee, that Jackie spent a lot of time thinking about the lunch plan inside of if and when we had to have it. And we had multiple conversations with the Board of Health and ran the plan. So it has been vetted by the Board of Health as a safe alternative when we do have to eat inside.
yes.
Good job.
So something that we did this year that was instead of what we had imagined in our minds a few years ago was that we want to start to begin the tradition of Nature's Classroom with the 5th and 6th grades. And for anybody who doesn't know what Nature's Classroom is you can actually choose from a menu up to 5 days, but we were hoping for a 2 to 3 night probably a two night overnight 3-day experience for our students where they go to Beckett to this campground with these crazy science teachers, and they stay in cabins and they do these expeditions and they learn these science things and they go on hikes, and it's like really cool. They each have to take turn having jobs, and they like set tables and they cook and they clean up after one another, and it's like this very cool experience. And so we want to start to incorporate that into our 5th and 6th grades, and I think this community would absolutely love it. And I think it would also be something really special for our upper grade students and a big leadership piece. And it's very expensive. And so, you know, I think you saw in my document, I'd love to be able to use some school choice money to be able to support that for our students, to be able to have that piece. I don't need to ask for that this time, because instead this year, we had Nature's Classroom come to us for 2 days on site outside, and they led the 5th and 6th grade in some really cool things. They did trail hiking, they did community building games, they learned about catapults, they built catapults, they had catapult competitions, they built civilizations, they built structures, they built, what is not called a structure, what's it called? A shelter. They built shelters, and they loved it. And it was a 2-day outdoor expedition. So just know that when it feels safe, that will be something that we want to try to start to implement. I know there's another union school that does it, maybe 2, and I think sometimes they partner up at the same time when they go for a bigger amount of group. I don't know if Leverett would be interested in it, but I'll probably bring it up to them so that we have a partner school. But even if we don't, we're allowed to go. We would probably just be partnered with another school in Massachusetts when we went. So it's just something that the teachers are really interested in, and we know that the kids would really enjoy. We're having our traditional vocabulary costume day on October 29th, and we'll have an outdoor activity for the students to show off their costumes and words. Something else really exciting and that has been super successful is we started a special support for our preschool. and we have students working in 2 small support groups for 2 hours in the morning. And each group is staffed with a certified and experienced teacher. And we're able to do this because our new student support teacher, Nicole Sutka, was an integrated public preschool teacher for many years, very successful. And so she has a lot of skill. And, you know, we're dealing with children who have spent more than half of their life in a pandemic. And with that comes a lot of need and a lot of specialized support that needs to happen to support them. And we're really lucky that we have teachers who are willing to think really creatively for the best needs of the kids and come up with creative ideas. And so we developed this, and we're testing it out this week, and it's going really well. The kids are in these specialized support groups, which is basically 2 really cool little preschools with play centers and all of the lovely things for until like mid-morning. And then the students join back together and do activities and their specials and their lunch and their recess and their reading time and nap time and all of that. So it's just able for us to focus on the needs of students in very small groups to help get them ready for kindergarten, but also just to like get them used to school in general, how to be a friend, how to take turns, how to be in a classroom. So far it's been really lovely. We had a successful virtual open house, and we're going to conduct virtual conferences beginning next week. And did someone just say something to me? Okay. The last thing is, well, you can read the rest, but the last thing is I want to request the use of $1,000 from the school choice fund to be able to purchase temperature / CO2 gauges that the teachers union has requested of the school. Came across because there's been interesting conversation around the temperature in rooms when teachers want windows and doors open, and the comfort levels of the staff teaching and the comfort levels of the children. And so I think one of the compromises that the staff has made is that if we purchase these thermometers and CO2 gauges, then there can be an agreed upon temperature and an agreed upon CO2 level in the classroom where they would feel safe to close their doors and windows in the extreme weather. Which I think is a fair thing to ask. I think it was an interesting compromise, and I was willing to bring it forward to you to try to use that money for that cause. Leverett does have them, that I know.
Did you want to vote on that, or is that something you can use?
Well, I think I usually have to ask you to use the school choice money. So I think yes.
I think it might be best if we just voted to support, if you so choose, the principal's request.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve $1,000 for thermometers and CO2 testers?
So moved.
And a second?
I second.
Okay, and just to clarify, and that's from school choice funds. All right, Hayes, aye.
Thomas Paquin, aye.
Rose, I.
Martell, I.
Sullivan abstain.
Okay. Any questions for Jackie? Okay, Steve?
Yeah, if we're spending, or if you're in the students are spending so much time outside at lunch and with the classrooms, what happened to the tent?
We don't have a tent.
I understand, but we had one last year. And then at our first meeting last month, you just told us it was gone, and we never heard why or where it went and why we don't have one now.
Well, because you can only have a tent until October 15th. And so I didn't think it was reasonable to have a tent for a month. And in the springtime, like I've told the staff, we will be getting a tent starting when we're allowed to have a tent, which I think is like April something.
It's so funny to have so many regulations.
And one more is, how come we never heard about the teachers wanting these thermometers and CO2 things until tonight?
Because they just told me about it on Friday.
I will say that I think there's so much flux, I think with everything coming from different places, whether it be coming from the state, local board of health, guidelines seem to kind of shift and change.
Your bread.
I am glad that we were able to accommodate the request from the teachers. Word note, it's crazy times. All right. If there's nothing else with Jackie, why don't we move to the next? And I think that's you, Steve.
Wait, can I ask a quick question, Dan?
I'm sorry, yes.
Jackie, where's the regulation for the tents come from?
It's a safety code. I think it has to do with the snow. I'm not really sure, but we were going to be getting, last year we were going to get a tent, and then we were told that we're not allowed to have a tent after October 15th until I forget the spring date.
Is that from the fire department, or
It's
where-
it's like a regulation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's across Massachusetts, I believe, because all of our schools were told that date.
It's good to know.
Steve's raising his.
So oh, sorry, Lauren.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so the October 15th to April 15th, that's the so-called snow time, where that's when the state has to get fired up for the snow removal, and so it all rolls into that.
Okay. Good to know. All right. Lauren, I didn't cut you off, right? You were just acknowledging Steve.
All set.
Thank you. All right, Steve, your report.
All right, so we met last week, and I've just got two things. The first one, as Michael pointed out in a public comment, was the 6th grade move to the middle school. And Amherst is, in 2023, we'll be doing it. And I'm still not quite sure about foreign language. I'm going to find out more about that on Tuesday when we meet again, because it did come up again. And other than that, I was okay with the way that it's going to work. That the one thing I did learn is that, Jackie, if we sent our 6th graders down there, you could be the principal of 2 schools. That, yeah, because this is Amherst trying to get around the regional agreement that for now we're not touching it. So each town would be responsible for their 6th graders. The elementary school principal is in charge of 6th graders at the middle school. And that would be whether we wanted to rent a classroom and just send our 6th grade down there, or we wanted to integrate our 6th graders into Amherst. You would be the lucky winner of 2 schools. So
That sounds like a giant nightmare.
No, in the winter, you could spend it down there in the warm weather in Amherst and come back up for the spring. But so I'll know more next week about the foreign language. But the nice thing is that they'll be able to offer more electives and more after school activities, because they'll have another 160 students. So it'll just increase the pool of people that could, or students that could participate in different things. And the other conversation we had was about the National Guard helping with the pool testing. And we decided that we would like their help as long as they were plain clothes. And it turns out that within a day or two after our meeting, when we voted not, we said we'd accept them as long with our within our parameters. It turns out we're not going to need them, because the company will have enough for the middle school and high school do pool testing beginning the first week of November without the National Guard.
This is what I mean. It's all crazy when you have to bring in the National Guard to test your pool. Anything else, Stephen?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Any questions? All right. At the collaborative, we had our meeting. We reorganized. We did just hear that the payroll protection program that money was forgiven. So that is really good for the budget there. I believe it's around $58 million or some crazy amount. Other than that, contract negotiations for teachers in the DYS, Department of Youth Services, working on a contract with them. Historically, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before, one of the issues that we've had is really retaining teachers in that setting. It's pretty difficult circumstances to be in working with students who are incarcerated, students in institutional settings. They don't really have steps and lanes and things like that. So we're really focusing on that contract now, trying to work with different state agencies to try to really make a difference in the contract in order to retain teachers. Other than that, things are going well there. People are coming back to the office. They're looking at providing additional services for social justice and equity, which is a pretty hot topic right now. And trying to service not only districts in Hampshire and Franklin County, but also helping those in the Berkshires as well. So other than that, that's about it for the collaborative. For future business, there are some dates there for policy committee, the next school committee meeting, Union 28, budget and personnel. Does anyone see any conflicts with any of those dates? No? Good. Future agenda items. Lauren and Jennifer are both going to be nice to be able to put that agenda item about masks back on for the next meeting. If anyone has any items they'd like to discuss, please forward an email to me or Jennifer or Pam in that. She's also great at collecting information. We're more than happy to put anything on the agenda. Is there anything else that anyone would like to say before I adjourn the meeting? All right, I appreciate you all being here this evening and for putting up with my technology issues again. Thank you, Lauren, for hosting and for watching for hands for me. All right, there is nothing else. This meeting is adjourned. Roll call out. Hayes, aye.
Sullivan, I.
Thomas Bacon, aye.
Rose, I.
Martell, I.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.